I'm sitting here and I see some news and I'm like, wow, this just doesn't make sense. The first things first, Raw Underground. They debuted Raw Underground yesterday on Raw. Give it 1 month, it's not important. The WWE Draft reportedly could be coming back in October. The draft has not had any type of importance in at least a minimum of 10 years. Okay? Let me tell you why it's not important. It's not important because a superstar is going to get drafted, and 1 month later, all of a sudden, hello, he walks out on SmackDown. The WWE Draft has no importance because there is no brand splitting. There's supposed to be. The draft has not been important since 2007. And the worst part of it, WWE announces Payback 1 month after SummerSlam. Why not just call it a network special filled with rematches because it's not a pay-per-view? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about 3 wrestling topics right here in this video. Hit the like button, subscribe, go nowhere else. I just got to make a mention. WWE right now is going through the motions more now than they ever have before. And it shows you every single week on their television. We have 3 things here. 3 wrestling news, 3 things in regards to wrestling news to talk about. We have the Payback pay-per-view, which is exactly, if I'm correct, 1 week after SummerSlam, which means one thing. It is going to be a network special used to grab your attention that's filled with rematches from SummerSlam. Why? Because first off, it's a week afterwards. There's no build towards it. You can't have any type of build in 1 week. WWE used to have they used to have the setup where they had the Raw SmackDown, or the Raw pay-per-view, then the SmackDown pay-per-view. Now, generally, SmackDown during that time period was putting on some of its best television, late 2016. Whoever was writing that, it was Brian something, I don't know, some NXT writer or whoever was writing that show. But during that time period, SmackDown was having some of its best television, but it was pay-per-view overload. 2 pay-per-views a month was way too much. I even think now, 1 pay-per-view a month is way too much, and we all think the same exact thing. I'm going to tell you this. August 30th, not only is it rematches, it's titled Payback. What is Payback? Payback from what happened. It's going to be filled with 75% SummerSlam rematches. If you don't believe me, just watch. WWE reportedly planning a new draft. Now, the WWE Draft used to be one of the things yearly that I used to look forward to probably almost more than anything else on the calendar outside of the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. The problem is that we're in 2020. The draft is not exciting anymore. It used to be exciting. The morale of wrestling fans, despite some good feuds going on, is more at a low now than it's been in quite a long time. And I can tell you that for a fact. I'm going to say this. It's not important because the draft's going to happen. They're going to have people on Raw, people on SmackDown, and next thing you know, someone's going to win this title, someone's going to win that title, and next thing you know, this person's on this show, this person's on that show, and it's just not going to make any sense. The draft used to be so fun. They used to have it set up to where you would have the match, then you would have the little lottery on the screen, and boom, there it was. So let's talk about this. The first topic we're going to talk about is WWE reportedly planning a new draft. This is from Wrestling Inc. I saw this the other day, and I was like, well, keep reaching. It looks like the superstars of WWE may be getting some new opportunities in coming months. That's another way of saying they're going to shift wrestlers around and have different matches, but they're not going to get new opportunities because that's not what happens in WWE. They're reporting another draft between Raw and SmackDown. According to Meltzer on the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, there were originally 5 different dates being considered by the draft, but it has been narrowed down to 2 possible dates in October. Meltzer also notes up last week the draft was set to take place at some point this month. He says that it may end up being moved to September, but whenever the date may be, WWE intends to hold another draft in the coming months. This was going to be one of my questions. There's no word on if NXT stars will be included. Last year, the Street Profits were called up to Raw as part of the event. The previous draft took place on SmackDown in October 2019. Continued on Raw the following week, which I don't really know why they did that. Have the draft on one night. Why are we having it on 2 nights? Continued on Raw the following week and included an opportunity to trade stars post-draft. Notable stars that switched to the blue brand were Bray Wyatt, Sasha Banks, Braun Strowman on the red side, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and Charlotte Flair. Now, it's cool from the draft, the aspect of the draft, back when there was some type of civilization in WWE, was to draft superstars and put them on different brands to give us fresh matchups. Here's the case in point. If Randy Orton is on Raw, Kevin Owens is on SmackDown, we don't see them fight because they are on different brands. Now, the only time where that would be an exception would be Survivor Series, where we have champion versus champion matches. Usually, those matches are supposed to be with people on different brands. Now, the United States Championship is on Raw right now, the Intercontinental Championship on SmackDown, but there's no official word as of exactly where those titles belong. because there are superstars. I mean, Sasha Banks and Bayley are an exception because they have women's tag team titles that show up on this show, show up on that show. In recent memory, or at least recently, they've done a little bit of a better job with trying to keep superstars on one show. I get with the pandemic, it may be a little bit tricky. But here's the thing. The draft is supposed to give us fresh matchups and then see new faces and new locations. The concept behind the draft is great. It is great, and the draft used to be once great. The problem now is that the draft is, right now, WWE is only doing that for a desperate grab at ratings and a desperate grab at attention. The WWE Draft right now is not created with any other concept besides that. They don't care who's on what show, who's on this show or that show. The concept is great, but I don't care anymore because it's not important. It's not fun to watch. Last year's draft was, I couldn't even pay attention. And part of the reason why I didn't pay attention is because it didn't feel like it was something that I needed to watch. And that's the problem with WWE, is they do not put on television that gives you a reason to watch. Okay? How can they make this important? Involve NXT. Involve some call-ups, or a lot of people would like to say demotions. Put some wrestlers that are in NXT on the main roster. Now they're getting chances at championships, hopefully, and doing whatever. You know, Adam Cole, we love him to death. We don't want to see him leave NXT. But if he did, don't just do it randomly. Do it during the draft, because that's how you promote the draft. Me personally, I want to care, but I don't. They're saying that it's slated for September or October. Either or would be my bet. I mean, the draft would be a lot more exciting in person. Not that people make noise at wrestling shows anyway. Well, they do, but it depends what wrestling show you're at. The best case of them is whenever they do this, stick to it. Stick to it. If you're going to do a draft, have the wrestlers that are drafted to that show on that show. Unless, of course, there is an exception with Survivor Series and certain things. But none of this wild card rule crap. None of this. No. If you're drafted to a show, you are on that show. If you want to make a special appearance on a promoted show like Raw 25th Anniversary, okay, but we don't need you on that show because you're drafted to this show. See, what they do is WWE gives us these shows and different events, and everyone's like, oh, yay, but they don't forget that the logic that follows doesn't follow the event, okay? Involve NXT. We don't need to see more than 3 or 4 people called up at once because it would hurt my heart to see all those people be ruined. No, I don't mean it that way. But what I'm saying is, put these people that you're putting from the draft onto these shows. Make the draft the draft. Have the lottery again. Don't just put Brock Lesnar's drafted to SmackDown. Make it feel important like it once did. That's all I'm going to say on that. September, October, WWE desperate now more than ever just to get attention, ratings, and money because they're not getting revenue. That is what they'll do. You know, WWE right now is not great, but they have some storylines that have been very good. And you can see them trying to grasp that potential. What they do with it, I don't know. Speaking of news that doesn't make any sense, cable providers responsible for this leak in Canada began advertising for WWE Payback, which is on pay-per-view. So some of you will pay $60 for a show that probably isn't even worth $10. Following reports that WWE will host a second pay-per-view in August, two cable providers in Canada have provided updated listings on pay-per-view events for the remainder of the month. The following information was sent out to the cable systems in Canada. It said WWE Payback 2020 will be held on Sunday, August 30th at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. The last Payback event was in April 2017. Featured Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman. I believe, if I'm correct, that was actually a good match. First problem. It's another desperate attempt as money. We know this already. They've been selling the network with free tiers. We know that already. I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to dive too much into this, but I'm going to tell you this right now. This is a desperate grab at money, attention, and not only is it a desperate grab at money and attention, it is a desperate grab at a SummerSlam rematch. I want you to look at the SummerSlam card when it is finalized. And once it is finalized, I want you to look at the Payback card. How are they going about finalizing the Payback card? You have an event that is 1 week after SummerSlam. Are you just going to say the next night on Raw, you're going to announce 4 matches for Payback? You're going to say, so-and-so won at this pay-per-view. Oh, this is what happened here. So what we're going to do is, this Sunday at Payback, it's going to be a pay-per-view that has no build to it. It's going to be majority SummerSlam rematches. Have a nice day. I'm not interested. Okay? Will I watch it? Yeah. Will I cover it? Sure. But I'm not interested. It's just, again, and I'm sure WWE actually, for some reason, didn't want this cat out of the bag yet. I think for some reason, in all honesty, they wanted this to be kept a secret so they can do what they do and announce it last minute. SummerSlam should be a good show. There's a lot of potential for it. But Payback is going to be exactly what it sounds like. Rematches. You should call this show a network special. It's what is going to separate it from something like StarCast. Honestly, honest to God. It's the same exact thing. It is the same exact thing. Held August 30th, congratulations. Another attention grabber. Man, this news today sucks, doesn't it? The last thing we're going to talk about is Raw Underground. Now, I saw this trending last night. I wasn't watching Raw at the time. What the hell is Raw Underground? Is it a new game? Is it something new? It's another concept at a pathetic attempt to grab attention that 1 month from now will not be important. Shane McMahon embraces the weird with Raw Underground, more WWE fallout. Last night on Raw, WWE debuted what was called Raw Underground. What is Raw Underground? It sounds like it's exactly what you would think it would sound like. It's street fighting, pretty much. In a bold move to spark fan attention, WWE promised a big change and delivered, with Shane McMahon returning to introduce Raw Underground. Well, welcome back to Shane McMahon. As long as he's not on television, claiming he's the best in the world, I don't mind him on television. The concept was focused on pure destruction. A ring with no ropes, set up, allowing performers to step in and truly fight. McMahon wanted everyone to see what superstars could do in a real fight. From the debut of Dabba-Kato to the dominant showings of Eric and Dolph Ziggler, many thrived in this new environment. However, no one made their mark quite like MVP, Bobby Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin. The Hurt Business took over Raw Underground. Throughout the night, more weirdness spread as the lights went out throughout. It was later revealed that the group of masked men were sabotaging the equipment, including throwing Molotov cocktails at a generator. The more straightforward moments of the night focused on some of the best talent in WWE. Drew McIntyre continued his impressive run with Randy Orton. Okay, this is about Raw. This night was one to remember. While it's hard to say truly if this is a good or bad thing, what mattered to WWE was that everyone was talking about it all. This is a carbon copy of UFC. Raw Underground could benefit some before it likely fades away in a month. Absolutely. What you're going to see on Raw Underground, and I hate to say this, but we all know it. Raw Underground is going to be littered with wrestlers that WWE has nothing for. They're not going to be in any important feuds. It's going to be for wrestlers that aren't on TV to be given some kind of importance. And it's really sad that a guy like Dolph Ziggler's on something like this. It's not an insult to who is, but it's sad because Dolph Ziggler should be chasing a mid-card title. He should be fighting Apollo Crews at SummerSlam. Now, don't get me wrong. MVP's been great. He's been great on television. What he's done for Bobby Lashley's great, and what he's going to do for Shelton Benjamin is even greater. But there's no reason as to why this is happening. Now, obviously, the idea of it happening is to build the Hurt Business, which is going to be between MVP, Bobby Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin. Okay, that's great. That's great, but why is this happening? It's a knockoff of real fighting, and that's exactly what it is. It's nothing more, it's nothing less. It is literally the 24/7 championship, which was a fun giggle for about a week, and then it died down. Shelton Benjamin's the 24/7 champion, by the way. Not that it matters, because the 24/7 championship, to be honest, was important when Drake Maverick had it, and then it really didn't have any importance after that. So that's where we'll go with that. Raw Underground really does nothing for me. It really doesn't. The concept is great. Let's see what they do with it. You know, we crap on everything. Some things turn out great. Let's see what they do with it. You know what? I think it's going to be very cringy and not really that important. As far as the masked men, that's clearly a new stable. We saw Samoa Joe yesterday stepping up to Seth Rollins. Maybe that is a sign of Samoa Joe getting back in the ring. I'd like to think so, because he's as great as he is on commentary, he's even better in the ring. Shane McMahon embraces the weird with Raw Underground. I'm sorry if the news seemed a little bit dry today, but that's really all I got. So Raw Underground is going to give some importance to wrestlers that have nothing for them on TV, and that's about it. Thank you for watching. As always, stay safe.